So what? Oh, it's being live screen.
She can edit though.
Good evening and welcome to the Purpose and Powerful Podcast. We are back. I'm your host, Erica Luster, and today we're diving into a topic that many of us face along with my co-hosts, Thomas and Deborah. Tonight's episode, your new love story, breaking free from toxic cycles. Here's what we're going to explore. The Purpose and Powerful Podcast. We are back. I'm your host, Erica Luster, and today we'll explore how to recognize unhealthy patterns, heal from past wounds, and create relationships that truly serve your growth and your purpose. But be sure to subscribe to the podcast on all of our social media channels. And don't forget to like, share, and comment on this episode. Your thoughts and experience matter to us. So let's get started on rewriting your love story. How are you guys doing tonight?
Excellent.
Fantastic. So
Yes.
it's been a few weeks, but we are back and back live. So first question up is, how do you know if you're actually in love or just addicted to the drama of a toxic relationship?
Because it's toxic.
What makes it toxic?
And you have seen yourself there before.
Such
Because
as,
it's toxic.
you got to go a little deeper.
Oh, I mean, I was good right there. I mean, so the old saying of what's the sign? What's the sign of insanity?
Same thing over
Doing
and
the
over
same
again.
thing,
Yeah.
expecting different results. So you're getting the same kind of guy from the same kind of place, doing the same kind of things, and you're expecting him to be better when it's the same because it's all toxic. And many people know when, even if they are all glorious and, hey baby, how you doing, and all of that in the first part of a relationship, you automatically, those signs, those spirits, and you have to get something different. So the challenge is that for toxic is just that, and it's something that's good to you, but it's not good for you. For men, you like to find women that got a nice smell odor, that look good in pictures, and got everything. She might have a little bit of cash and she might not, but the picture mentioned is 1,000 words, and you're like, oh my goodness, that's good. But they have the drama going on with either kids, or they got, I need money from you, or something else. And it becomes something that is that from the get-go, when they want the expensive dinners and all of that stuff, and they become needy or whatever, and then you're like, okay, this is, I need somebody to need me, but I don't need nobody to need me that much. But then here we go down this rabbit hole about this young lady, because she look good, and I'm just gonna say it, sex may be good, everything is all, but it's just a wrong thing for you. You ain't taking her home to mama, and you ain't marrying her, but you're gonna keep her around. But for a woman, it's different because they're looking for something a lot more stable, but they're looking at it from the wrong perspective. Because sometimes that guy ain't gonna be the Arnold Schwarzenegger or whatever the brothers are, Oh man, see, I'm dating myself, not Eddie Murphy's, or the nice, strong, handsome brothers that we see on TV. They're not going to be that. They're going to be that kind of little bit overweight, a little bit dumpy guy that got plenty of money, that's doing all of this, but he's got an ego on his shoulder big as Texas. And now here you go. You're saying, well, I can deal with the ego as long as he treated me right. I can deal with the ego as long as this, as long as that. But then I can deal, Shirley Murdoch. Don't worry about the man you want, be with the one you went. All that kind of crazy stuff. And it's toxic. You know, you're not going anywhere. You're stealing a man from another. You know, a guy that's got another guy that's got another woman, and you're saying, hey, he's interested in me. I know he just dumped her last week. Then where do you think you're going to be next week? So it's understanding all of that and then making sure that you're not another notch in their belt. You're not another had that. Been there. So toxic.
Back up for just a second so we can help our audience understand by definition purposes. And you hit and touched on a lot of those things, but basically, a toxic relationship is any connection that drains your energy, clouds your judgment, and chips away at your self-worth. It's a cycle of constant stress, emotional roller coasters, which you did a great job of describing, and unhealed patterns, being with people that don't belong to you, type of thing, where love may exist, but it leaves you feeling hurt, trapped, or less than your best self. That essentially is the definition of a toxic relationship.
Yeah, what you just said.
Yeah. So I would say, here's a question for Miss Deborah. I think this would be better hit here. What's the hardest part about breaking free from someone you've been attached to, even when you know it's bad for you?
The hardest part is actually admitting the truth about the relationship and that it's not good for you, because that's where you find, just talking sometimes when you have a woman who's in an abuse situation, but she stays in the abuse situation. But she stays in the abuse situation because it's actually easier for her to stay there than to make the changes that are required for her to leave. And so the hardest thing is that you have to basically let yourself know, hey, this is not a good relationship for me, and I need to get out of it because, and I'm going to go ahead and bring God into it. God does not intend for us to be in those types of relationships. And so when you turn around and you're settling because you're like, oh, but he said, and it's like, no. He's got problems and he needs to go get help. And him telling you, hey, baby, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. But if he hit you once, hit you twice, and then after a while, it just becomes a pattern of abuse, you know that's not good. It's not good. Even so, I mean, that's physical abuse. The other one can be mentally, where they attack you and tell you you're no good. Nobody's going to want you. And so you allow them to kind of brainwash you. But at that point, you have to look at yourself and you have to think about what is good for me. And because they've attacked your character. But you have to understand, God didn't make any junk. And so with him not making any junk, then why am I allowing him to badmouth me? And so then, what's that? That's, what is that called? Your self-image. You have to, first of all, you have to love yourself. It's really what it comes down to. I love me. Do I love me enough that I want someone who's going to respect me? And if this person is not respecting me, if this person is abusing me, am I not going to love me enough to try and get out? So it really, where does it start? It starts here. It starts here with knowing your self-worth.
And I'm just piggyback on that. And it can't be about the kids. Today we have a lot more single moms than we have a lot. And it should never be about the kids. He's great with the kids. He's providing for the kids. Stuff like that. I mean, that's another stringer that goes along with that. Yeah, he is. But if the kids lose the mom, what do they have? He has no strings attached. Even though he's great with the kids, but you have to be a part of that child's life. And you're setting a role model for that child. And if you're sitting there getting beat up or getting in a toxic relationship, what do you think they're going to be? Whether it's male or female, it don't matter. And even for the guys, that are single parents, it's the same thing. Well, like my baby need a mama. Well, no, not that bad. That's that whole song of I can do bad by myself. Yeah, you can. And myself is you, because no matter what that child is going to do, that child is going to look to you, and whatever you're putting into that child life is going to be with them, and they're going to have to work that out later on when they grow up.
Yes, because you're modeling for your kids what a relationship looks like. And if you're settling for the mental abuse or the physical abuse, and your children are growing up in that, they're going to say to themselves, is that what a relationship is about? And we already know that when the kids are involved in it as well, and they see that, they're going through things, and you're like, don't touch my mama. That's how you get a young boy trying to defend his mother against his father, or a young girl trying to defend a parent from an adult when they're not able to. And so now we're traumatizing the kids at that point. And this is a trauma, like he said, that when they get older, this is a trauma that they've got to live through. So a lot of times when you have those toxic relationships, it's because probably even the person themselves has been in a toxic relationship.
A recipient of a toxic.
Right, right. They might have grown up in one, and so they think this is the way it's supposed to be, and it really isn't.
I do marriage. I'm working on my premarital license, and one of the things that we talked about is looking at how premarital counseling does well, because it actually looks into your background and lets you understand what that person came out of and what that person might have as a problem or an issue with you and with them. Because many times it's not about you, it's about them and their trust factor. And for men, and I can talk about us, we have trust issues. Why? It's because some women done put us out there, and they done slept around on us or done something to us, or our mom, had a dad that slept around, had a guy that slept around, or vice versa. And so now everybody's damaged. And so we're going through the whole point of trying to validate who we dating, who they are with. And it becomes just toxic, because toxic, it has a whole lot of definition. You hit it on the head, but it just depends on what toxic look like. And even God-fearing men can be toxic, because we're damaged too. Because just because we love the Lord don't mean that the spirit that we have in us we done got rid of. That just means that we loving God and God is still working with us. But that is not an excuse for abuse. And as I said, for the women, there is no reason for treason. And so, and what do I mean by that? Betray man for somebody else because you don't think he's worth it, or whatever, or he's not living up to what he said that he's supposed to be, or what he is. because at this point you're looking for something better. But at the same point, you're not giving that person a chance because he's falling weak in some other part of his life, and I mean other part of his manhood. But that's I was listening to something the other day, and the young lady, actually, I think you sent it to me. Well, the young lady compared a man to an umbrella, and she turned around and she says, you know, a man is like an umbrella. You know, he's there to protect you. He's there to keep everything away from you. When it's raining, when it's storm, if you pop that umbrella up and it protects you, and then what do you have? You have, and that's a man, but the woman is there to hold him up, to make sure that he's steady, to make sure that he's grounded, to make sure that he has everything he needs to provide the protection that he's designed for. But it's the same point. If I'm an umbrella and I'm full of holes, how can I allow you to hold me up and you still trying to dodge rain? So I have to make sure that I'm patching myself and making sure that I'm allowing God to heal me and to fill my holes, while she needs to be able to stand and make sure that I have that solid foundation so that I can provide it for what she has. Because if she all shaky down here and I can't come home to a good house, I can't get my house straight, because, you know, and I mean, I'm talking a little bit deeper, because I'm saying if they're married, but before that, if my house is still shaky, if my umbrella is shaky full of holes, sister girl need to check and make sure that's the umbrella she want to be trying to put herself up under. And if old boy is looking and he see that her ground is shaky and she's all over the place as far as her dependability, how she's treating him, how she's trusting him, and all of that, then he might want to make sure that that's not the person that's trying to hold him up. These are things that, and if that's what you're used to patching the holes in the guy. Guess what? You can't patch the holes in the guy. God's got to do that. If he's sitting there and every time he comes over, she's all over the place. She can't do this. She can't manage her bills. She got boyfriends running in and out of the house. She got mama, daddies. I mean, she got her baby daddies running in and out the house. And she's, you know, running from this place to this place, trying to make a hustle and all of that. He might want to step back too. Because how he's going to build a house on shaky ground? How is he trying to bring something into his house? If his house is solid, the moment that he brings up under that roof, then it becomes unstable, because there's no consistency there. And so that trust, that whole scenario has to be looked at from both sides. Toxic. And that's what we are looking at when we're looking at these toxic relationships. If you're looking at, if you constantly getting umbrella with the same holes in the same place and the structure's not strong, then you need to check and see what you're doing. And it's not about in the church. It's not about getting a man out of the church or a woman out of the church. It's about getting the man or the woman that God has sent for you. And take the time and stop trying to run and find somebody to hold on to or get under, and find where your weaknesses are and get yourself straight. Because then you can withstand, then you can walk away from a toxic relationship. Or, you know, not getting to one. Because first you got to find the strength to get out of it. And that's male or female, it don't matter. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
How about now?
Yep. Gotcha.
Perfect. Fantastic. Thinking about those many years before these last wonderful 31 years of married life, back when you were
It's been that
dating
long?
ago.
Good Lord.
Can you share or think of a specific relationship or experience where you ignore red flags that cost you more than you expected? And what did that teach you about love, self-worth, and boundaries?
In this relationship or previous relationships?
No, previous. That's crazy.
Oh, I'm like,
You trying to get something started? No, before you hit the jackpot of 31 years of married love, before all of that, before meeting this wonderful, beautiful queen beside you, in your years of developing as a young man, did you run into toxic relationships of any kind?
oh yeah, not a lot. I mean, I can pretty much count all my serious relationship on two hands. And still have some left over. Because to me, I was looking for stability. I understood where I was. I understood some of the things that God had for me, and I knew that I had to find the person that was going to be with me for the rest of my life, for the rest of the life that we have together. And so, because I'm just going to be real. In my profession, I was a military officer back in the 1990s. Everybody wanted a young lieutenant, and especially around military installation. So, she's saying, But, and so the challenge is making sure that the person you wanted was there for the right reasons, and that was for you. I had a I had a great defense because I rode around in a raggedy VW Beetle. It was terrible. It was horrendous and loud.
Hello.
And that was my litmus test, because I would be like, hey, we're going to lunch. And they'd be like, where and what? I'm like, this is my car. And they'd be like, oh, no, we're not going in that. And I'm like, okay, you just struck one. Okay. And then if they refuse to get in there and say, well, let's just take my car. I'm like, okay, I'll take them to lunch and they'll never show back up again. And because I already knew that if they were not crazy enough to get into this car with me, then they were not crazy enough to be for me to go any further. And, she looked at the car, thought about it a moment, but she got in. And I'm like, oh, we might have some here. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. But, yeah, but you have to take the time to understand what their motives are and what their goals are. Are they looking for somebody they can truly trust? Or are they looking for a good time? Are they looking for, a sugar daddy, or what are they looking for? And for men, we have to be cautious because they might be just looking for somebody to take care of their kids. They're looking for that good father figure. And are they looking for that good, guy that's going to make sure that they're stable and make sure that that's going to be there, in it to win it, because they're looking for those guys. But yeah, I've had a few. Out of those about 8, I had about 2, and the challenge is they drive hard and fast. They drive hard, they try to get to your heart, and then they move in fast and they try to lock you down. And many times we're suckers for that. My first one, yeah, I was a big sucker for it, and it took me a while to crawl back out of it. And when I figured it out, I ain't go back.
What was the first step you made on your way into recovery?
Stop seeing her, stop taking the phone calls. And then she started showing up at the house.
How'd you handle that?
So what now?
How'd you handle that? These pop-up visits.
The door. Ease out the back door and take off.
So you didn't confront it head on, basically.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not dealing with you. I'm not dealing with because the whole point about it is I never let them know where I work. They knew I was they did. Never let them understood what they knew. I was in the Army. They knew I was a lieutenant, but that's about all they knew. They didn't know where I worked. They didn't know who my superior officers were. I kept working. I kept my work and my private life just that way, separate, because I believe that they didn't have no business of understanding who I was and what my rank. What I was doing, and I didn't want them to have anything to do with. I kept my purse. I made sure that when I left them, they had nothing to come back at me at. They didn't know my friends. They didn't know anybody, and my friends didn't know them. So first couple of dates, actually the first couple of months, nobody knew who I was dating because I didn't bring them around nobody. We went away from home. We didn't go around the city. I took them out to different places where I knew that my friends didn't hang.
It's not now, Fred. How
So
about you,
what?
Miss Deborah, for 31 years of married life before this young man came along with his loud yellow VW Beetle? How did you navigate these chartered waters?
Well, I had really a slightly different situation because a lot of times my challenge was that once men knew that I was an engineer, they very politely exited the door. So I didn't really have a whole lot to deal with when it came to that. A lot of times they left because I mean at that time it was the type thing that men didn't like women that were smarter than them, didn't necessarily want to deal with a woman that was smarter than them. And because I always remember I went to a, a friend's family reunion, and I remember sitting there and talking to this young man for about 2 hours. At the time, I was a double major. I was art and engineering. So they'd ask if they knew I was in college, I would tell them I was in art. And they were good. They'd sit and talk. And then, but they started asking questions about what I was doing and about my classes. And the majority of my classes were engineering. So I had to admit, I was like, okay, I'm a double major. My other major is engineering. As soon as I made that declaration, all of a sudden, in 5 minutes, the guy couldn't talk to me. He became tongue twisted, but he had been talking to me for over an hour. But I was the same person. But because he found out I was in engineering, he became tongue twisted. And 5 minutes later, he was gone. So a lot of times, I just didn't have to deal with uh, those types of relationships in that way. So they
They say
were usually,
rejection is God's
or
protection.
yeah, or I actually had a couple of guys that actually respected me. One guy sat there and he told me, he says, "You're a beautiful woman and everything." And he said, "You are marriage material." I mean, this is what he was telling me. He said, "But I'm not ready to get married." So I was like, okay.
At least he was honest.
Yeah, he was honest. He was honest. You're marriage material, but I'm not ready to get married yet. So we're gonna cool our friendship. But I mean, it was a real nice friendship. As you know, as far as going out and doing things, he'd call up, "Hey, what you doing?" Uh, I
Trying to
wouldn't,
get there.
I wouldn't necessarily be doing anything. He's like, "Let's go for a bike ride," you know. So I mean, it was a nice relationship, but I guess the people that I primarily dealt with, they just kind of noticed it and they're like, no, this isn't going that way. And actually I do remember one where the guy and I had a miss uh had a discussion. I won't say we had a discussion. And because I had told my daughter one thing and he came up and he was like, no, no, no. No, baby girl, we don't do this. And I was like, she got permission from me. And he was like, he ignored me. So I just stood toe to toe with him and looked at him in his eyes, lowered my voice because I wasn't really a yeller, and told him, I says, "Look, I just told you. I told her it was okay." Later on that night, he got a call. I received a call. He's like, I can't do that. I can't do the relationship. because it scared him, because I stood up to him. So those are the situations that I've had, but I've not had to run away from them or anything like that.
Run.
If anything, it was a guy running from me.
Do it, Joseph. Need a coat behind.
Well, I think, you can be in healthy relationships and then there be pieces or parts of toxicity. I myself was in what I consider to be a healthy relationship that was going pretty well for 30 months. But we got to the place in the relationship where we were about to do the premarital counseling. And so we started like the pre-engagement counseling. And inside of that relationship, even though I was very upfront from the beginning that I wanted and desired to be a mom, and he had 5 of his own already, he said in that meeting, and I'll never forget this, he said, well, I didn't really see myself as having additional children. So the toxic part is really when people try to push their narrative on you, and it could be going along fine, but they have programmed themselves to say they don't want to see eye to eye with you on something that is critical to you, but that they can sway you in some form. And in that way, I identified it correctly, which is like you're trying to control my future based on what you want. And I've been very upfront about what would happen. I was so upset about that. And we had a conversation after, and I'm like, what would make you think that a conversation would have solved that for me? I would have, had we not gone, and that's why I love that you alluded to earlier, Thomas, about the counseling. Had we not had that, because a lot of people feel like they just have it together and we're just going to go on down this aisle and get it together in marriage and stuff like that. I think that process will help you navigate things where you would not have rose-colored glasses and be able to see things clearly, because that third party or that third party information, the questions, help you to truly evaluate why you want to get married in the first place. And it's not this, oh, we're going to be husband and wife, Mr. and Mrs., and everything's going to be fantastic for to death do us part type stuff. And you have to come to the situation with some real answers and some real truth about who we are and really what we want. So even though, as you can see, it can seemingly be in a healthy situation, there'll be some toxic stuff that you just uncover in the process of seeking truth about where you want to be in the future. So looking at all of that.
Now, I got a question for you, though.
Sure. Fantastic.
So how do you rebuild trust in yourself after realizing you've been in the wrong relationship?
I kind of like what Miss Deborah said. I realized in that moment that I was in a wrong relationship. And though how much as I love this guy and can see a future in parts with him, is not what I wanted. And I had to stick to what I wanted and say, this is where I see my life. This is what God has told me that I'm going to have. And I'm not going to have that with him. So as much as I love him, I love me and the future God promised me way more than submitting myself to being trapped. So first of all, I had to just be honest about that, saying, that I'm not so hung up in the fact at that time that I had become 40 years old, looking to be remarried, that just because we had been in a relationship for 30 months, that I was going to commit the rest of my life being dissatisfied or missing out on what God had for me and what I wanted for myself, just for the sake of saying I'm in a relationship and I'm married. And I think that that's hard for some people to do, is to really admit truth to themselves first about what it really is and say, hey, it doesn't even really matter, because what I want and what I'm looking for is so much more important than where I am right now, that I don't care how crazy I look. I'm going through with this anyway. And I'm just not, I just wasn't that person. So for me, it was just saying, this is my truth and I'm sticking to my truth.
Okay.
And so
So,
rebuilding trust in myself was
mhm.
I knew what had got me to that place of having 2 failed marriages, right?
Mhm.
And I trusted in the word God had given to me, and I trusted in what I knew that I wanted for my future. And it didn't really matter, because one thing I can say and was able to identify was I stayed in those situations and committed to marriages that, even though I knew I loved them, that there would be something that always would be missing, that I would always be sacrificing something, and I wasn't prepared to do a sacrifice. And so that was hard to say 30 months of life with this guy is not going forward. But I said, I choose me. So it was easy for me to trust myself when I had already taken myself through wrong relationships for years. Because in this relationship, I was choosing myself, where other times I sacrificed what I wanted to stay before.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Right.
Here's a
And
question.
I just needed to understand, because I know that that's hard for a lot of people, because now, people tell them you don't know how to pick men, you don't know how to pick women, dude, you always going down the wrong road. So you begin to trust others instead of yourself. And that's the worst thing you can do, because now you're dependent on others to pick who you're dealing with for the lifetime or dealing with for the moment. And, so you have to be able to rebuild yourself, to refocus and to restructure. Just like you said, own the relationship. Own it, because if you can't own it, then you can't determine what was wrong with it. Because you're always looking for what was wrong with the other person instead of what was wrong with you. You can't take the log out of your eye if you're always looking at the log in somebody else's and not recognizing you're looking through I won't even say rose-colored glasses. You're looking through half an eye. You're looking through an eye with a cataract in it. You ain't even seeing straight. It ain't rose-colored, because rose-colors, you can see through them and it just looks a little bit different. But you're looking through a log in your eye, you ain't even seeing but half the picture.
I think for me, the best case scenario, right? Because I had that choice and I had built myself on truth to myself, and that was not the person that was going to sacrifice in the long run. But we got to recognize that some of our listeners are actually sitting in toxic marriages. So both of you being married and both of you having counseled other married people, for those people finding themselves actually in a toxic marriage, what would you say are the first signs that their relationship is actually harming them emotionally, spiritually, or mentally? And if so, how can they begin to address those things safely?
Find the antidote. What I mean by that, if it's acidic, find your base. If it's a base, then find you some acid. So understand, and what do I mean by that? Not the drug.
I'm gonna say, explain that, please.
Yeah.
You've got
Emotional first. So let's break that part down. So if they're
So
finding emotional signs, what would be some signs that they're being harmed emotionally?
I mean, when a person cannot look at themselves in the mirror and see themselves and understand what they're doing, and they're totally focused on the happiness of how somebody else happiness is, then they've lost there's a balance that has to be, emotionally. Um, it has to be a balance of where the emotions are on both sides. Because number one, some relationships is not about you. It's about them. And you can't fix them. You have to fix yourself first. So you first look inward so that you can actually begin working with you. Then you try to work with them, because you have to come from a place of understanding who you are. You first have to know yourself before you can fix anything. And understand where your left and right limits are, where your toxic natures are, and you begin to work with them, because you can't work with, I mean, think about it. How can I fix another person if I'm broke? Hurt people. So I got to heal me before I can try to heal her. And vice versa. She's got to heal her before she can try to work with me.
And I can't heal you.
And she can't heal me. God can heal me. We have to have that, you know, I always tell, and like I tell my soldiers, when we fail ourselves, where we go. When we fail ourselves, where we go. I can't beat up on my wife because I failed myself. She can't beat up on me, or she shouldn't beat up on me because she failed herself. Those were her failures, not mine. I should be there to pick you up, but you shouldn't treat me like a drowning person. You know, the drowning person sitting out in the water drowning, and then you go out there and try to help them, and then the only thing you do is drown too. So, you know, and you know, I can't knock her out. She might try to knock me out. You know, I don't. You know, but the challenge is that you have to step away and understand who you are. And once you understand who you are, once you understand how you're emotionally tied to this, you have to then turn around and understand, how do I, number one, is this relationship worth it?
Well, they're in the
Where,
marriage now, though, right?
yeah, but is it still worth it? Is it still
Mhm.
worth it? You know, I'm in this to ride or die. Can I live with this? Is this who I truly love? You know, and you have to look at, why did I marry her? And she have to look at, why did I marry him? And be real with that. Did I marry her because I felt that she was my life? With my wife, yeah, I married her because I know this is what God sent me, and I'm going to hang with that. You know, devil ain't taking nothing that God gave me. And I know that I call her my sweet thing. Sweetest thing God ever gave me. Because what God said, he said, a man that finds a wife finds a good thing. So she my sweetest thing. But, you know, so we have to understand, why are we there? You have to ask yourself that question and be real with it. And then what you have, is it worth fighting for? Is the toxicity in that person going to kill you? Or can you ask God to give you the power to heal it, or to assist in the healing process? And can this toxicity become a stepping stone in your marriage and in the rest of your life? Because you just can't look at today, you got to look at tomorrow. Because today is just a fight. Tomorrow is a lifetime. So it's like a bad investment. Sometimes, you know, Ken and Roger, you got to know when to hold, know when to fold, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You know, you have to make sure that you understand where you are in that, and how much does this mean to you. It can't be because it's the father of my children, a mother of my children. You can't be any of that. You have to look at you, because once the children are gone, guess who's going to be there? You are. So you have to understand that. And just like she said, what's your value? What's your worth? If you ain't nothing but a piece of trash to him, or punching bag to him, or she ain't nothing, you are nothing but a money bank to her, or even a punching bag to her. Because I've seen brothers get beat toe up from the floor up too by the wives. And the challenge is that, where are you in this relationship? Is it worth it? Even if you're married, is it worth it? Because if you can see your future is death, is it worth your life by this person? You have to ask that question, and be real with yourself. And if you don't see a great future, you don't see a future that can be modified, even trusting God. If you don't see something that's doable, you got to see God and say, okay, God, I need out of this mess. I got in for the wrong reasons. I was looking at the booty and whatever. You look, we grown here. I was in it for the sex. I was in it for all of this, and you got to realize why you there. Because once that's all gone, then I have a brother now that's out there, and I don't know why they got married, but what I know is that when the money left, they left. That's what I know. And so when you look at things like that, you have to ask the question. And this wasn't a 5, 10 year marriage. This was a 20 some odd year marriage. And when the money left, they left.
Mm.
And so I know there's a lot more to that. That's being simplified, but that's what I know and seen. And so we have to make sure, and you got to ask that question, uh, why are we here? And if it stops, then you got to make, is it worth fighting to still fight, or do I move on to, I want to say greener pastures, but do I move on with my life?
Good. So from the mental well-being, this question is part for Miss Deborah. What are the first signs that the relationship, and this is within the confines of marriage, is harming someone based on their mental well-being, and how they can safely address it?
Well, mentally, you're going to start realizing that you're not happy in the relationship, that things aren't they're not what they used to be. So like mentally, you're going to start seeing, or you'll even start seeing where your relationship will change physically, where you're no longer spending enough time. And I'll just use an example. At one point, when we first got married, he had told me, he says, if there is anything wrong that starts going crazy in the marriage, he said, I won't be spending a whole lot of time home. And so I was like, okay, that's interesting. But then I had noticed all of a sudden he started working late. He justified it because he was saying, well, his boss was at work and he couldn't leave work until after his boss left. And so after a while, I was like, okay, all right. But then I just finally, just had to ask him, what's going on? I was like, okay, I remember you're telling me this. I see this pattern. What's going on? And you have to be able, it was really, it ended up being something really crazy. But because I like watching, what was that? Hallmark movies. What was
Oh,
it, Hallmark movies? Or something like that. And sometimes they're tear jerkers. And so he would come home and he'd see where, the movie had affected me. And he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I'm like, nothing. Just watching the movie. But he made it to think that there was something else going on in the relationship. So finally, when I finally figured out, I was like, dude, really? I said, come on. But you notice, because the normal patterns that you have in your relationship, they're not going to be there. And they might be mentally, they might be physically, but the whole thing is that you do have to have your eyes open and recognize that something is going on and that it needs to be addressed.
and the other part about mental is that they start tearing you down. They stop seeing you as a beautiful queen and they see you as the ugly hag, or you can't do nothing right. That's a mental game. You're not you're mostly outgoing. You were outgoing when you were there, when you are dated, but now, well, you need to stay at home sometime. You need to do this. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. And that's on both sides. So when they start to mentally, because there's a difference between emotional beat down, and a mental beat down. The mental beat down start fighting you and challenging you where your mental state is and how you feel about yourself. While the emotional breakdown actually starts breaking down on how you believe yourself to be. And you're always in an emotional turmoil because you're trying to figure out which feelings that I feel are real, and they're trying to tell you one thing, but they're doing something else.
And what about spiritually? What's the first sign you think is one to identify when they know that they're involved in a toxic marriage?
Gotta tell you. I remember I was dating this girl and my spirit was like, oh, head to the no, leave this chick alone. And and that, I'm sitting there and the spirit's like, my spirit, oh man, this one person I was with, and as soon as I met her, my spirit was like, don't even think about it. And I'm like, man, that's a tall drink of water right there. And my spirit was like, don't even think about it. That's a headache.
Mm.
But at the same time, when I saw her, I'm like, man, that's a tall drink of water right there. I wouldn't mind getting a hold of that. And the spirit was like, okay. But I never, and I'm like, yeah, she out of my league. I can't deal with her. And then all of a sudden she showed up next to my car because we were parked next to each other. Then she spoke to me and I was like, oh, she actually pretty nice. She ain't stuck up. And, everything started to gel. I mean, even at the point we were sitting there talking and she was like, I'll never be your wife. And I'm saying, I don't want you to be neither. And I mean, we had those conversations and we were like, ain't no way in the world I have you as my wife. And she was like, 6 months later, we were married. The challenge that we had, it was a year?
Yeah.
So, okay. But, and now 31 years later, you know what I'm saying? So take the time to know who you're getting involved with spiritually. Because, and it's just like I tell most couples, don't put the sex in it.
There you go.
Leave it alone. Because sex screws everything up. Because sex actually crosses both barriers. It makes everybody think with the wrong pieces. Yeah. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Men think with their head, little one, and the other, women think with their, yeah. I don't know how to say that one.
We trying to figure it out. We want you to describe that for us.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it alone because that was just weird.
Please.
But anyway, leave the sex out of it and understand the person mentally and spiritually first. Physical can wait because here's the point: if the mental and the spiritual always are there, the sexual will automatically. I've had people that have been celibate for years, like 15 years, and and they're like, man, I don't know, but shoot, man, after wedding night, shoot, just like bunnies, all over each other. But because the spiritual part of the woman and the man will meet the sexual needs of both. But you have to get there first. You have to get there spiritually and mentally so that you're both wanting the same things. That's why the oneness is so amazing, because if you get to the oneness, then everything else works. But you can't get there if you're both on a different spiritual plane or a different mental plane, and you're knowing that it's toxic. You can't get there toxic, because every time you take a drink from that person, then you're going to get bad stuff and you get sick, mentally, spiritually, or physically. So you can't be there. So you got to get the now. Let me just clear this up. Everybody got poison. Everybody got poison because we're all born in sin, wrapped in iniquity. So we all toxic to some point. But the challenge is that is the toxicity something you can grow with, and you can make it into something beautiful? Because look, opium has its place. Cyanide has its place. All of these poisons have their place when used properly. When God is in the mix, toxicity can become the greatest and the best thing you ever had, because it balances each other and it allows you to grow in God as you grow into yourselves, and everything becomes amazing, because the toxic actually don't get more poisonous. The toxicity actually gets to be more better, from a sense of it becomes less from a point of what's negative to more of a point of what's positive. Everybody's got to grow. Everybody has been tainted. Everybody's got some toxicity. So toxic is not all bad, but we just have to understand what is bad for us. Because I can eat lettuce all day. She can't. Make her sick. Relationships are the same way. Choose your poison wisely. Wisely. That's all I got.
Fantastic. So we've heard tonight that toxic relationships can leave lasting emotional, mental, and even spiritual scars. And we talked about counseling, because counseling is critical for those that are trapped in toxic relationships and you're not able to work that out with the partner, whether it be a boyfriend or girlfriend or even a spouse. But counseling will help provide that safe, neutral space to help you process those experiences, to gain the clarity that you need, and even learn strategies to break unhealthy patterns. And your overall benefits for healing from counseling is that emotional clarity and validation is going to help you process the emotions and validate your experiences without judgment. It'll help you break the cycle so you can learn tools to identify and to avoid repeating those same toxic patterns. Most of all, it's going to help you rebuild self-worth, because it helps you restore your confidence, self-respect, and even a sense of personal power. And that is so important. But last but not least, it's going to help you improve communication skills, because you're going to need to be able to set healthy boundaries and express your needs effectively, and to navigate conflict constructively. So we definitely don't want people to not feel like there isn't an answer to solving toxic patterns, that there is help that's out there. So seek someone, whether that be a pastor, a counselor, and more natural settings if you don't have the spiritual aspect. But definitely, if you are one that has a spiritual life, you want to find someone that can balance the natural with the spiritual and help you navigate out of the toxic relationship that you're in, and to be able to get the tools to recognize and to gain clarity so that you start to build and attract healthy relationships in your future. Final thoughts from my co-hosts regarding tonight's episode.
Ladies first.
I'm good. I think you summarized it quite well.
Yeah, you did. The only thing I have, there are 2 tools you can get. One is called Prepare and Enrich. Prepare and Enrich. That's a prepare/enrich.com. And you can find a counselor that can give that to you. It's just a survey that you can take. You and your partner or spouse can both fill out your own questionnaires, and then it'll actually go back through your histories and all of that. And the counselor or the person that you get to do it can just give you those surveys so that you guys can work it out together, or you can hire them to do the counseling. Another one is called Symbis, Symbis. And Symbis is the same thing. They're both assessments, and they take where you are in your marriage or in your relationship, and they give you pointers. And both of them work on your focus on your strengths, and actually begin to show you where you can get stronger. We don't like to call them weaknesses, because a weakness can be a strength depending on who's guiding it. And so we look at it from a point of what can make you stronger in other areas of your relationship and of your life. So those are 2 tools that I carry in my kit bag, and other marriage counselors or premarital counselors can most likely have in their kit bag. And if they don't have those tools, My recommendation is that if they don't have those tools, find you somebody that has the tools, and then you can take the assessments back to, or you can have that marriage counselor request the assessments through the person that you actually took the assessment through. I've been through the assessments and I enjoy them. I actually believe in the assessments. So that would be something that I would advise married and pre-married couples to get if they believe that they're having issues inside of their marriage that they want to change.
Thank you, Thomas. We'll be sure to get that information and post it on the social media accounts so that people can refer back to this. Thank you so much tonight for listening to the Purpose and Powerful podcast. Remember, breaking free from toxic cycles is the first step to your new love story. So start setting boundaries, healing, and choosing love that truly uplifts you. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your journey to healthier relationships starts today. We ask that you join us on Sunday, October 26th for our next episode. And with that, we will say good night. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great night.